In all my years of photography, there's one lens above all that I've used to create most of my best work. One that I always come back to and would recommend to any photographer, hobbyist, or professional. Fujifilm's 23mm f2 is a lens that's near and dear to my heart, and would go as far as to say is one of the most complete offerings that you can find on the system. Some of my best images that I've made on the street, on assignment, and in my day-to-day life were made with this lens across multiple cameras. And there's 5 key qualities that put this on the top of the list. First is the image quality. This lens is among the best I've ever used, regardless of system. It's beautifully sharp, contrasty, has great color rendition. It is more of a reality lens than a character lens. According to Fujifilm, this lens is also supplemented by the 40 megapixel sensors in their newer models, even though this came out long before them, meaning this lens has aged like fine wine with the system, and you can buy it with a long-term mentality. In the times where I've used this wide or near wide open for a portrait, I've been extremely happy with the sharpness and lovely background separation. Now, sure, the shallowest depth of field of this lens is equivalent to somewhere around f2.8 on a full frame system, but that's plenty. I love a fast 1.2 or even 0.9 lens as much as the next photographer, but once you get to that point, chromatic aberration can be evident, and it's a lot harder to focus on your subjects in general. Once you stop this lens down to f5.6 and beyond, it goes from sharp and contrasty to its peak performance. Corner to corner, it's excellent. This makes it perfect for street and documentary style photography because you'll be capturing the world with crystal clarity. Regarding the actual rendering of this lens, there's people out there who might prefer a lens with a bit more character, and I say that's fine. But the advantage of this being more of a reality lens, I call it, is that you can build on that optical design with accessories such as diffusion filters or simply with your post-processing or custom film simulations. Not to mention, many people out there don't seek to take pictures with diffusion effects and such. All in all, this lens has beautiful image quality, and the features that we'll discuss next will only build on its greatness. The next feature that makes this lens such a quality pick for Fujifilm is the autofocus. I've used this lens on cameras as old as Fuji's X-H1 over to the X Pro 3 and up through the X-T50 and my current X-T5. And across the board, it's been remarkably consistent when you take into account how the autofocus was at the time. My primary method of autofocus is zone, and whether it's quick snaps from the hip or more methodical approaches, I can use this lens with confidence and trust that it'll come through for me. Across 4 or 5 cameras now, it's always done its job focus-wise and showed up for me in all aspects of my work. Speaking of my work, I started a free newsletter on Substack called Camera Flow. This platform allows me to go deeper into various artistic and photography-based concepts, and it's been super fulfilling to explore those topics beyond the gear and the lenses, etc. Be sure to subscribe to me over there as I'm posting bi-weekly pieces. But getting back to the 23f2, the third key feature that put this over the top for me is the size. This is nearly as compact of a lens as you could ever want without going into pancake territory and trading off features like speed and ergonomics. Now, I don't put too much stock into the whole stealth aspect of street photography. Once the camera's raised to your face, you have a camera covering your face. It's not hard to see it, but there is something to be said about having a lens that's no bigger than it has to be. And even though I don't overly care about size from a stealth standpoint, it does matter to me in a carrying something for hours standpoint. At only 180 grams, this is a tiny lens, all while maintaining a fast f2 aperture. Dang near all you can ask for on APS-C, and the fact that it has a tactile aperture ring is the cherry on top. Factor number 4 is going to be the weather resistance. I don't have much to say about this in detail because it's pretty self-explanatory, but this is a lens that you can rely on in rain, humidity, cold, heat, what have you. I've taken it through all of those conditions over the years, and it's always shown up on the other side. But the final reason why I love this lens is the perspective. 23mm on APS-C is equivalent to 35mm on full frame. And the 35mm focal length is what I always go to when I need a visual reset or just want a lens that feels right. When 50 can sometimes feel a little too tight, you have 35mm open things up and still maintain that visual order. Where you can sometimes get lost in how expansive 28mm can feel on the street, you have 35mm bring things back together and add some aesthetic form to your compositions. 35mm is simply spectacular for street photography. The focal length itself is a major part of why this lens always boomerangs back into my bag. For more insight into how 35mm compares to other focal lengths, I have 2 videos, one with it being compared to 28mm and one with it being compared to 50. I'll link those in the description along with my free newsletter that I mentioned earlier. But to close this out, Do know that across Fujifilm's f2 prime trio, you're essentially getting the same build quality, focusing, and image quality with this, the 35 f2, and the 50 f2. So between these three lenses, it really just comes down to which focal length do you like the most. I've owned and used all of them, and for me, the 23 f2 is the one that's still here. It's my all-time favorite first-party Fuji lens, and I suggest that you give it a try. My name is Dorian Coleman, and I'll see you in the next one.